Vyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us also that we can appreciate your words of wisdom, be attracted to them and be attracted to you through them. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So, today I thought we will look at the Bhagavatam. We'll try to do an overview, but not a section-wise overview of the Bhagavatam, but a conceptual evolution in the Bhagavatam. That means that if we start with one question, if we say, what is the Bhagavatam's purpose? Like any book, if you want to read the book, you want to know, okay, what is this book about? So we could say, what is in that book for me? That's one way of looking at it. What is in it for me? That's my relevance. But then, when the author wrote the book, what was the purpose of the book? So, if we are reading a book on home maintenance, we are reading a book on medicine, we are reading a book on a particular topic, then the topic is clear, okay, I want to know about this topic. Now, if we start by asking, what is the purpose of the Bhagavatam? What would you say? What is the Bhagavatam for?
Love of Krishna.
Love of Krishna, yes, that is true. So, any other answers?
Reciprocation between the devotees and Krishna.
Okay, let's see. So, the purpose of the Bhagavatam is to demonstrate love of Krishna. The purpose of the Bhagavatam is to show Krishna devotees reciprocation. Yes, that is true. Anything else?
Know about Krishna.
Okay, we love Krishna, we get knowledge of Krishna, then we can love Krishna. Okay, I'll give one clue. That if we consider the origin, like if you want to know the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, we can have many purposes of the Bhagavad Gita, but we can look at the original conversation that defines the Bhagavad Gita. And then we know the purpose. So similarly, what is the defining conversation of the Bhagavatam? And within that, what is the purpose of the Bhagavatam, if you look at it? Yeah?
Prakshit Maharaj has very limited time to live.
Okay.
So within that time, he has to, whatever karma that he needs to do, fulfill within that time now. It's been recited all through stories of all the cantos.
Karma he needs to do. Okay, yeah. I mean, you're on the right track that he has limited time. So what do you do in the limited time?
How to go closer to
How to go closer to Krishna. So, essentially it is how to remember Krishna.
Yeah.
Isn't it? That tasman ekena manasa bhagavan satvatam patihi shrotavya kirtitavyascha dheya pujyascha nityada. So in one sense, the Bhagavatam's purpose is similar to the Gita's purpose. It's also slightly different. That the Gita's purpose is ma manusmara yudhyacha. You remember me and fight. So there is inner recollection, inner remembrance, and there is outer engagement in the world. In the Bhagavatam, that outer engagement is stopped, at least for Parikshit Maharaj, and complete immersion in Krishna. So in one sense, the purpose of the Bhagavatam is to help Parikshit Maharaj remember Krishna. And any other purposes mentioned in the Bhagavatam itself? The famous verse which talks about the glory of the Bhagavatam. You want to say something? Whatever you had.
Oh, sorry. I was about to say that.
Whatever, yeah.
So Vyasadeva was displaying, like he wasn't happy that he has written all the other scriptures. But when Narada Muni came and then he actually
Okay.
said that we didn't talk about Bhagavan. So,
Okay, so you could say exclusive glorification of the Lord. Hmm? And the idea is that Yayatma Suprasidati, that it is exclusive glorification of Krishna, and this will lead to real satisfaction of the heart. That we understand from that context of the author of Vyasadeva. Hmm? Now, anything else? Yeah?
Prayers of the Lord.
Prayers of the Lord.
Yeah, devotees praying the Lord.
Okay. So that is a key feature of the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There are lots of prayers in the Bhagavatam. And sometimes the prayers are the section that devotees are reading, they skip the prayers. Because you know what happens is that they sometimes seem so long and they seem so philosophical. So sometimes it becomes a little difficult. But yeah, prayers are a key feature of the Bhagavatam. In fact, you know, there's a book called the Adhyatma Ramayana, which has largely borrowed the structure of the Bhagavatam. And what it has done is that it is telling the Ramayana stories, but then intermittently throughout there are prayers to Lord Ram. The way Krishna Lila is described in the 10th canto. So in some Ramayana renditions is done like that also. Now, the sages are speaking. That's also another context of the Bhagavatam's conversation. And why are the sages speaking?
The welfare of all our human beings in the
So,
world.
welfare of all. Anything specific about welfare when? Yes. So, what is the famous verse? Kalau nashta drishamesha puranarka adhunoditaha. So, it is to dissipate Kali Yuga. So, dissipate the influence of Kali Yuga. So, it is like the sun that has arisen. Puran arka adhunodita. Arka is the sun. Adhuna uditaha. Now it has arisen. And kalau nashta drishamesha. For those whose eyes have been, who have been blinded by the darkness of Kali, the Bhagavatam is going to illuminate the path of life for them. So, if we consider from this perspective, let's look at Parikshit Maharaj and Shukdev Goswami. So as I said, what we are trying to do, I'm not going to take specific sections of the Bhagavatam today, but I'm trying to point to the conceptual evolution. What are the concepts in the Bhagavatam and how they are evolving. So now, Parikshit Maharaj becomes ready to hear the Bhagavatam and Shukdev Goswami becomes ready to speak the Bhagavatam. If we see the main conversation of the Bhagavatam, it starts from towards the end of the first chapter, first canto, and actually Shukdev Goswami starts speaking from 2.1.1. Shukdev Goswami appears in the 19th chapter, but he starts speaking in the second canto. The first canto has 19 chapters. And then Parikshit Maharaj, Shukdev Goswami conversation ends in the 12th canto long before the Bhagavatam ends. The last several chapters, they are going on as the conversation between Suta and the sages. So we could say there is this meta-conversation. This is a conversation between, say, Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. And here is the conversation between Suta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunak Rishi. So the sages have sat down to find out a way to benefit humanity, especially because of the advent of Kali. Now, how does Parikshit Maharaj become prepared and how does Shukdev Goswami become prepared? In one sense, the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is setting the stage. That now, in one sense, the readiness of Shukdev Goswami is described in very few verses. It is described in the first canto, 7th chapter. Does anyone know or remember what is the title of the 7th chapter? That is where Krishna Lila actually starts in the Bhagavatam.
Son of Drona.
Yes, the son of Drona punished. And it's interesting, in the Sanskrit also, I looked at the Gita Nagari, they have the Sanskrit, it is Dronaputra. So it's interesting that Dronaputra has a name. So why say son of Drona punished? Why not say Ashwatthama punished? That's because the punishment that is given, a major factor in deciding the punishment is that he is the son of Drona. So that he could do something so terrible, and how to deal with that. So, what we'll try to do today is, we will try to get to say, if we want to understand the theme of the Bhagavatam. The theme of the Bhagavatam is to help us remember Krishna. So we'll see how this theme is being approached in different ways. So it's not, so what I'm going to do is more of not a linear approach, but a multilateral approach. That not step 1, step 2, step 3. This is how the Bhagavatam is evolving. That's one way to look at it. But we'll see how different ways the Bhagavatam is pointing to one same point. So if we see, the core message of the Bhagavatam is, or the core conversation of the Bhagavatam is between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. And in the Bhagavatam, in the 7th chapter, there are a few verses which describe Shukadeva Goswami's enlightenment. That how he is Atma Rama Ashchamunayo Nirgantha Pyurukhan. So in a few verses, how the teacher becomes ready to speak is described. But the major section of the first canto, from the 7th chapter to the 19th chapter, is actually Parikshit Maharaj's backstory. Backstory means that how he becomes ready to hear the Bhagavatam. And in that sense, the first canto is doing many things. So I'll talk about 3 things that the first canto is doing. But the first is that it is giving us an introduction to the main characters who are going to have a discussion. See, nowadays, the Bhagavatam is not so much like a class. It is, if you want to use today's word, it's more like a podcast. And now, if there's going to be a podcast, we want to know who are the people on the podcast, isn't it? Sometimes the podcasters are very famous. Now that person's podcast itself becomes very famous, and then there are various guests who come over there. So now in a podcast, it's more like a free-flowing discussion. So Shukadeva Goswami is the main speaker in the Bhagavatam. Throughout he is speaking, but the Bhagavatam devotes more time to tell the story of Parikshit Maharaj than of Shukadeva Goswami. The one reason for that is that if you consider a sage and a king, general people, who are they going to be more attracted to? A king, naturally. General people are going to be attracted to a king. A king's life is likely to be more interesting, isn't it? A sage life is, okay, every day you wake up, you do some sadhana, you do some puja. Unless a sage life is, maybe a sage is a traveling speaker or something like that. Otherwise, a sage life is not going to be very adventurous, isn't it? If you wanted to make a movie about a sage sadhana, that would be a very uninteresting movie. Now, how the sage became a sage, you can make a movie out of that. What happened to their life. But so the story of Shukadeva Goswami in that sense, for the general people, is not that interesting. So, but the story of a king is much more interesting. Because most people, they want to become materially powerful, materially prosperous. And how did such a person come and hear from Shukadeva Goswami? So now, from our spiritual perspective, Prabhupada is the great Acharya. But in the time of Prabhupada, when George Harrison came to him, the fact that George Harrison was taking guidance from Prabhupada, that actually made many more people want to know about Prabhupada. So like that, the Bhagavatam focuses on Parikshit Maharaj's story. And so the idea is, king is, while the sage may be wiser, definitely much wiser, but the king's life is far more dramatic, far more interesting, far more relevant for most people. So now he could be telling any stories from the king's life. There's so many things could have happened in Parikshit Maharaj's life, but there are certain things which are focused on. And what is the focus? So the mood of the Bhagavatam. So I said one thing is the conversation is being set up. The two characters are described, but which incidents are to be told? That's anytime anybody writes a history. So writing of history is always a process of selection. That selection means there are so many events. And say if somebody wants to write about Indian independence, now we could say these are the key events that led to the Indian independence, and we are focusing on these events. But did really those events contribute or something else contributed? Now in the mainstream Indian history, it is told that Gandhiji played a huge role because of India got independence. Now a lot of historians are doing research and they are saying that especially it was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose who played a huge role, and that without his efforts, now many times his roles are not emphasized that much. So now it depends. History is always a process of selection. Writing history. So when the Bhagavatam is selecting certain incidents, so what are the incidents being selected? So let's look at that. Now if we consider Parikshit, so the son of Drona punished, that is where it starts with Parikshit's birth. And the first canto, it ends with Parikshit cursed. It's not his death, but it is, we could say, his death curse. So in one sense, this is the journey that is described. So the son of Drona punished describes the backstory that the Pandavas do something good. The Pandavas deliberate and they are going to, they decide that Drona's son should be forgiven. And that very person whom they could have killed, who they forgive, that person tries to kill their surviving heir. So generally speaking, what happens in life when we try to do good, let's put it this way, if we do good, we expect good to happen. Now if we go out of our way to do great good, then what we expect is something great good should happen to us. But what happens if somebody does something great good and as a result of that something great bad happens? Now this seems outrageous. So the Pandavas deliberate and they decide to forgive Ashwatthama. And their mood is that the war is over. Let's have a closure. Let's end all this killing. Now, Ashwatthama is a character who is in many ways a tragic character in the Bhagavatam, or in the Mahabharata more specifically. See, what happens to him is that he is not really very devoted to Duryodhan the way Karna is. So till a particular point, he is not evil. In fact, there are two times when he tells Duryodhan, enough now, stop the war. But it is after Drona is killed, he just completely loses the plot after that. He feels that Drona was killed by the Pandavas deceitfully. And they killed him while he was meditating, while he was asleep. And therefore, they deserve to be killed in the same way. Now the key difference over here is Duryodhan. And what happens is the Drona's killing is a tragic thing. Now I don't want to go too much into the Mahabharata, but to understand the theme of the Bhagavatam is, okay, I'll just tell the conclusion and I'll draw towards it, that see, generally if life is going on well in our life, things are going on well in our life, if we have some piety, if we have some devotion, it is easy to remember God. But when bad things start happening to us, at that time, to remember God to stay faithful to him becomes especially difficult. And this is one of the themes of the Bhagavatam, the defining theme. That when good people, terrible things happen to them for some small fault or for no fault at all. And still they are to remember the Lord. See, when we talk about remembrance, remembrance is when we want to remember Krishna, it's not just a matter of information. That, like somebody asks, what is the capital of Somalia? Oh, I had learned it in my childhood. Somebody say, I never heard of Somalia. What is the capital of Somalia? You don't even know. So it's not like the remembrance of Krishna is not an informational remembrance. We hear more stories, we will remember. That's true. It's more of a relational remembrance. Not informational, but relational. That we have a relationship with Krishna, and within that relationship we remember Krishna. Now, of course, when there is a relationship, there is information also. Now, if we have a relationship with someone, we care for someone, we know about that person. But the remembrance, this remembrance of Krishna is not like a concept that we memorize some formula, we memorize some statement and we repeat it. It is the remembrance of a person. And remembering a person becomes especially difficult, or remembering at least affectionately becomes difficult if we feel that that person has treated us badly. If somebody has hurt us, if we had some expectation from someone and that person does the exact opposite of that, then remembering that person becomes very difficult. So at that time we may want, I want to forget this person. Sometimes there are movie songs which say my memory has become my enemy now. Because I want to forget this person, but the memory of this person is coming again and again and again. So when we feel that something bad has happened to us, and we understand Krishna is the supreme controller, and still something bad has happened to us, at that time, to be favorably disposed towards Krishna, bhajatam priti purvakam, that becomes very difficult. So how to remember Krishna amid adversity? That is the theme of the Bhagavatam, broadly speaking. So it is a resource for remembering Krishna, but one of the biggest obstacles to remembering Krishna is not just that we don't know about Krishna, but it is that we have negative emotions towards Krishna. Not that we feel that Krishna, why is this suffering come in my life? Why is Krishna making this happen or letting this happen or whatever? Why is this happening? So if we look at the stories of the Bhagavatam, it starts with Ashwatthama. Now Ashwatthama doing something terrible. He's not a bad person, but he does practically the worst thing that has been done in the whole war. He kills the Pandavas' children and he kills the entire Pandavas' army while they are mostly sleeping. So why does he do this? As I said, he thinks that they are terrible people. They started it, I'll get back at them. I'll get back at them in a worse way. But the difference is that it's like a cycle. What happens is that Drona, he is goaded by Duryodhan. We can go as back as we want in the story. But after the Bhishma falls, everybody expects that now Karna has come on the battlefield and Duryodhan will make Karna the commander. So now Drona feels a little resentful of this because Drona is much older, he is much more senior, and Karna, now according to some retellings of the Mahabharata, Karna had come to Drona's academy for education and Drona refused him. So imagine a contemporary situation that if there is some person who is becoming a devotee and say you are the temple president and then you refuse to recommend him for initiation. And now that person has become the temple president and you have to serve under him. It's going to be very difficult. Imagine if we are a boss in a company and we interview some cadet and we reject that person. And then that person becomes our boss. It will be very, very difficult. So Drona is quite apprehensive and resentful about serving under Karna. So now Duryodhan goes to Karna but Karna is also aware of the dynamics. He says that Drona is our senior, and more importantly, most of the warriors who are fighting for you are students of Drona. So they will not be comfortable if they see that you have slighted their teacher by making somebody else the commander. So make him the commander. Now when Duryodhana approaches Drona and offers him the commandership, Drona is surprised and pleased. He says, I want to give you some benediction. And he says, the benediction I want is that you catch Yudhishthira alive, arrest him, and bring him alive to me. Now Drona is surprised and pleased. He said, oh, Yudhishthira is such a Ajat Shatru that even you don't want him killed. He said, the last 10 days of the war have made me realize that the Pandavas are undefeatable. That if I have Yudhishthira killed, Bhima and Arjuna will go mad and they will destroy my entire army. My plan is, if you arrest Yudhishthira and bring him alive before me, I will challenge him to another gambling match. And I will send him to the forest for another 13-14 years. So Drona says he'll never learn. But then Drona promises that I will arrest Yudhishthira. But he says, Arjuna is my student. I have taught him everything, but he is younger than me, and he has to tapasya gained more divyastras than what I have. So if he comes in the way, I will not be able to stop him. I will not be able to arrest Yudhishthira. So you get him out of the way. So he does that, and he tries. Susharma is the king of the Samspatakas, who diverts Arjuna. And the 11th, 12th, both days, Drona comes very close to arresting Yudhishthira, but Arjuna comes in the nick of time and saves him. Drona feels humiliated. 13th day, they form the Chakravyuh. Their purpose is to arrest Yudhishthira, and then Abhimanyu gets in. And the fact that Abhimanyu defeats everybody in the Kaurava army, that is also humiliating for Drona. And then Drona has to come up with the idea of having 6 warriors attack him simultaneously. So this is where Drona starts going on the dark side. The dark side means he starts under the influence of Duryodhana, goaded by Duryodhana. Duryodhana repeat, whenever any setback happens, Duryodhana says, oh Acharya, you are not fighting wholeheartedly. If you have residual affection to the Pandavas because of which you are not fighting, then please step aside. Let Karna be the commander. And Karna will gain victory for you. Now, this is humiliating and infuriating for Drona. Now, on the 13th day, Abhimanyu is killed, but at the 14th day, Arjuna kills Jayadratha. And that is the most humiliating for Drona, because he has arranged the entire army to protect Jayadratha. And still Jayadratha is killed. And now Duryodhana becomes extremely angry. And finally all this gets to Drona. And on the 15th day, Drona, in his fury, starts using celestial weapons against ordinary soldiers. Like now there are two wars going on across the world. The wars themselves are terrible and everybody is being affected, especially with the fuel prices and everything. But at least to some extent, nobody has used nuclear weapons till now. Russia has not used, Israel has not used, Iran doesn't have till now. They might have used. But the point is, even India, Pakistan, there was a war, but nobody used nuclear weapons. So at least that level of sanity is there. And especially if one side is not having nuclear weapons, the other side suddenly uses nuclear weapons. If some head of state started using nuclear weapons, it's quite likely that other countries will say that somehow or other you have to kill this head of state. Whatever way you can assassinate him, assassinate him. So Drona starts using celestial weapons against ordinary soldiers. When the sages come in the sky and tell him, Drona, stop. But he's so agitated, he continues. And that's when Krishna with Yudhishthira and Bhima and Arjuna comes up with the plan. We have to get Drona to lower his weapons. Now Arjuna's plan is that as soon as Drona lowers his weapons on hearing that Ashwatthama is killed, that we will have him arrested. Because Drona is his guru, he doesn't want to kill his guru. And he said, we'll have him arrested and keep him in house arrest till the war is over. But When eventually Drona lowers his weapon, at that time the warrior closest to him is Drishtadyumna. And Drishtadyumna is totally frustrated. Drishtadyumna was born to kill Drona. And he has not even once come anywhere close to killing Drona. So it's like if somebody is born with a particular purpose or a particular mission, that mission can actually become a burden. This is what you are meant to do. And he's frustrated, and on that very day, his father had been killed by Drona. So right in front of Drishtadyumna's eyes, Drona had killed Drupada. So Drishtadyumna was frustrated, and when he saw Drona lowering his weapons and sitting down in meditation, he charged forward with a sword. Okay. This is voice activated, huh? Let me turn this on. So anyway, so every warriors from both sides try to stop him. Arjuna says, Drishtadyumna, stop. From Kaurava's side, they say, stop. But Drishtadyumna is so maddened, he just charges forward and he lops off the head of Drona. Now, Duryodhan, at that time Ashwathama has been wounded, so he's not visible in the war field. He has gone for some treatment. That's why when the Pandavas say that Ashwathama is dead, Yudhishthira says, Drona also says that Ashwathama is not here in the war field. So when Ashwathama returns, the Kauravas are fleeing because their commander has been killed. They don't know what to do. So at that time, Duryodhan tells one essential lie. That is, the Pandavas conspired they lied to your father, they made him senseless, and then they brutally killed him. So that they lied is true. That he became inactive, that is true. But did they plan to kill him that way? That was an individual action. So see, the most dangerous lies are the lies that start with truth and end with truth. And in between there is some falsehood. So that Drona is killed is true, that the Pandavas lied is true. So now because of this, so Ashwathama has this double guilt or double strong emotion. He had a strong rivalry with Arjuna, but he saw that Arjuna was better archer than him, and Arjuna also was truly devoted to his guru. So for a son to feel that my father cares for somebody else more than me, that's a bad feeling, not a very pleasant feeling. But he felt that actually Arjuna also cared for Drona more than what I could care for. And he couldn't believe that Arjuna would have been a part of a conspiracy to kill Drona like this. Now if he had done only one thing, he had just gone to the Pandavas and asked them once, how could you have done this to your own guru? But he did not do that. He did not do that. And unfortunately, everything that happened afterwards, Karna was killed when he was not on the chariot. Duryodhan was killed by hitting him below the belt, below the waist. So everything reinforced Ashwathama's conception that the Pandavas have become evil. And therefore he felt this dynasty itself is a kalank to the world. This dynasty has become evil, and therefore this dynasty has to be destroyed. So in his own perverse way, there was a reasoning for what he was doing. Now the Pandavas, they had not wanted to kill Drona. They didn't even want the war for that matter. The war had happened. So they forgave Ashwathama. Now they forgave Ashwathama, but Ashwathama did not take that forgiveness positively. So what happens is that in this world, there are people with goodness, there are people with weakness, and there are people with wickedness. So people with goodness, they generally don't do bad things at all. So goodness, weakness, wickedness is in terms of, we can say, lust, anger and greed. Everybody can be attacked by lust or anger or by greed. So people who have goodness, they are able to say no to this. They fight off and say no to this. People with weakness, they sometimes end up saying yes. Sometimes they are weak and they say yes. But people with wickedness, they don't just say yes, they say, I will fight for you. So they don't fight against lust, they fight for lust. They don't fight against anger, they fight for anger. So generally speaking, forgiveness is good for people who are good or who are weak. For such people, forgiveness helps them reform. Yeah, sometimes you did something bad, but for people who are wicked, now forgiveness only makes them worse. Because they don't think lust, anger, greed is wrong at all. They think, this is what gives me power. This is what enables me to enjoy. This is what is the sign of my success. So for such people, you forgive them for doing bad, they will only do more. So now the Pandavas have not really understood the reasoning of Ashwatthama. So the Pandavas deliberate what to do with Ashwatthama, and that's described in this 1.7 chapter. But there's no description of they letting Ashwatthama speak. Like, what is your thinking? How could you do something like this? So Ashwatthama is forgiven, but he tries to get back. And he tries to kill Parikshit when he is still in the womb. Now, we know abortion nowadays is very widespread. But in those times, it was something which was practically never done. Even Kamsa, he did not try to kill Devaki's children when they were in the womb. Now, I started to discuss the reason for that. But Ashwatthama trying to do Bhrunu Hatya, trying to kill Parikshit while he is still in the womb. That just shows how much on the dark side he has gone. That he has gone to that extent. But he has gone because he thinks the Pandavas have gone dark. The Pandavas have become evil. So, unka namo nishan mita dena chahiye. That is his logic. So now, that King Parikshit, his birth is marked with such drama and trauma. And at the time of his birth, Krishna intervenes and saves him in a miraculous way. According to the Acharya's commentary, actually the Brahmashira of Ashwatthama had killed Parikshit, but the Lord revived him. So, the gloriousness of Parikshit Maharaj is described that the Lord protected him right in the womb itself. So he is such a special person that the Lord intervened and protected him. Now it's interesting if you look at his life story, that Parikshit Maharaj's birth, there is an attack by a Brahmana. And his death is also an attack by a Brahmana. It is, here it's a missile that comes, and here it's a verbal missile, you can say. It's a curse that comes. So now, in many ways, the Bhagavatam often doesn't always depict the Brahmanas in always the best light. The Brahmanas, we have Shukracharya going against Lord Vishnu, against Vaman Dev. Many places where Brahmanas do less than complimentary things. So, the idea is that the Bhagavatam teaches although the Brahmanas are considered very respected, the Bhagavatam teaches that no human being is incorruptible. That Maya is so powerful that everyone can get corrupted. And so now the first thing is, he is such a glorious person that the Lord protects, that Krishna protects him here. That is the start of his story. And then after that, we have many other things happening. So right now we are in the 15th chapter. So Parikshit Maharaj doesn't seem to be so present over here. We have Parikshit Maharaj's birth. At that time the astrologers read the horoscope and say such a glorious person is going to be. And all that is there. So now how is the backstory for Parikshit Maharaj continuing when the Pandava, Dhritarashtra's retirement is described, Pandava's retirement is described now, Krishna's departure is described. So the point is, all these are hugely traumatic events. They're hugely consequential events. And all this is, so there are these great personalities. Sometimes, if there's a very great person and then that person departs, then you have to step into their shoes. It's not easy to step into their shoes. So the Pandavas are exalted people. And then after that, Parikshit has to step into their shoes. So what a great legacy he had, what a great responsibility he had. And in many ways, the Pandavas' departure also happens quite abruptly. See, normally nowadays in our movement we have succession planning. That we have a first generation, we have Prabhupada disciples who are gurus, who are GBC, but now they are getting in their sunset years. So now, how can the next generation leaders be prepared? So there is some systematic planning and training happening so that transition will happen. Now there is no much time for succession planning. Now, of course, it was clear that Parikshit Maharaj was going to succeed as the king, and he proves himself to be ready. But that transition happens quite suddenly. The chapter is the Pandavas title is the Pandavas retire timely. Now we could put it the Pandavas retire suddenly. Why? Because they get the news that Krishna is departed, and when Krishna is departed, they leave. So they install Parikshit as the king and they leave. So it's quite sudden that happens. It's timely from the perspective of the Pandavas. Pandavas are here to be a part of Krishna's mission, and when Krishna's mission is over, then the Pandavas leave. So it's timely from that perspective. But from the perspective of Parikshit Maharaj, it's sudden. And the whole responsibility of the kingdom is then thrust on him. And he takes it very competently. So if we consider, the whole story is going forward, that the Lord protected him, and then Parikshit, suddenly he becomes the king. He gets sudden kingship. It is expected, but when it happens, is sudden. Now, after that, there is an enduring threat that is there. It's like, say, if somebody becomes the head of state of India. Now, Pakistan is an enduring threat, or China is an enduring threat. So, every head of state will have to grapple with that danger. So, at that time, the Pandavas are such powerful kings that there is no earthly enemy for them. But there is a non-earthly enemy, that is Kali. Kali's influence is coming. And now, how powerfully Parikshit Maharaj succeeds in countering the influence of Kali. So Parikshit Maharaj's in his kingship, what is described? There are 2 chapters. There is that about the punishment of Kali. So after this 15th chapter which is going on, then after that, how Parikshit Maharaj confronts Kali, that is described. So sometimes in a country or in a city, there are police, and we have one temple in one place in America. And what happened in the first generation, when we got temples, at that time most of the people following our movement or even leading our movement were people from the counterculture. So they were not very economically well-to-do, they were not very professionals. So they did not live in very good localities. And where they were most likely there, that's where we had our centers. When Prabhupada started the 26th 2nd Avenue Center, now Manhattan and 26th 2nd Avenue is the elite part of New York. But at that time, when Prabhupada was going there, his well-wishers, Mishra and Yadal said, Swami, there is no place for you to go. No, that's a place where everybody takes drugs, and America is a place where everybody has guns. So, and some people are just trigger happy. Sometimes I go, I do a little cycling as the exercise. So I had a bag in which I had kept my crutches. So I was going in Texas, And one person, hey, have you got guns in that bag? So I saw he was laughing. I said, I got 2 guns, 2 crutches. So now the point is that it was very dangerous. So now we had one temple in one place. There the devotees, now Indians normally are quite well to do. In America, Indians are the wealthiest minority. They are the wealthiest and they are the most envied minority. As a right now, there's a lot of anti-immigration sentiment coming up. So it's coming up against the illegal immigrants who often come, and they are often like workers. That they don't work but they take welfare. And there are the high class immigrants, the Indians who come. But the complaint of Americans is Indians, they're not taking welfare, but they work so much that because of them we have to work so much now. So for a job, Indians are ready to work 10 hours, 12 hours, 40 hours. They are destroying the American workspace by working so hard. So it's quite a complicated thing. Anyway, my point is that our devotees would go to this particular temple. They were telling me that I went for a program over there. They said that in this area, we don't stop even for fuel over here. We just bring our car straight inside the temple, and then we open our car doors. Otherwise, it's quite high crime. So the devotees were telling me that here, if we lose anything, that we report to the police. The police say that, why are you staying over there? He said that, they say that, anyway, your insurance will cover. There's no point in us coming because crime is so high. So I was saying that the degree is that, say, suppose the crime is so high and the police also don't bother to address the crime. But sometimes the police are very vigilant that, okay, as soon as a report comes, as soon as a call comes, they will immediately come and look at it, investigate and catch the criminals. But the most active police are those who don't even wait for the call. They are themselves on patrol. Constantly see if any crime is happening and to catch the crime before it progresses too far or even before it starts. So Parikshit Maharaj going to search for the influence of Kali is like the police on patrol. And not just the police, we could say here it is the chief superintendent or inspector general or whatever the top post of the police, the king himself going on patrol. And he's so powerful that Kali realizes I can't fight with him. Now again, we could see the same thing comes in the Bhagavatam. Kali says, please give me, I am also your citizen, please give me some place to stay. And Parikshit Maharaj gives him some place. And now from that place, so at one level, Parikshit Maharaj defeats Kali completely. Kali has no power. The Pandavas have defeated the Kauravas, and yet one among the Kauravas hits a vicious blow to the Pandavas by killing their children. So now Parikshit Maharaj defeats Kali completely, but Kali hits back insidiously. Kali hits back through Shringi. So Shringi's cursing of Parikshit Maharaj is considered to be now he says Ashwatthama was a Brahmana, but he was actually living like a Kshatriya because Drona was also more or less living like a Kshatriya, he was fighting a war. He was a Brahmana always. But Shringi and Shamik Rishi, they were actually Brahmanas. Shringi was a Brahmana Putra. So it is said that Kali Yuga's influence became from the abuse of power by the Brahmanas. So when Shringi curses Parikshit, what happens at that time? He is cursed to die in 7 days. And where is the Lord? Why is the Lord not coming to protect? See, the Lord protected him in his womb. So the Lord wanted him for some purpose. Like if somebody has survived great danger, then one thing that happens is if somebody comes very close to death and survives death, then often they think of what really matters in life. I think maybe I was saved for some purpose. And then they may decide, okay, this is what I want to do. Generally, a close encounter with death makes people more serious about life, serious about doing something meaningful. And devotees will become more serious about a Krishna consciousness. Of course, some people go the opposite direction. Some people, more thoughtful people, when they face death, then they start thinking what really matters. And thoughtless people, if they face death, they just start enjoying as if nothing matters. Oh, okay. It's the complete Yanisha Sarvabhuta now. That, as in Kolkata, I saw one ad. It said, enjoy before you become a dirty old man. That the idea is that you are going to go old. See, the material spiritual vision is youth is temporary. Therefore, don't waste it in enjoying. Focus on spirituality. The materialistic vision is youth is temporary. Enjoy before you can't enjoy anymore. Isn't it? So now, Parikshit Maharaj, he is a wise person. So now for him, that encounter with death when it happens, he is going to focus on what matters. Now the Lord protected him in his mother's womb. So did the Lord not protect him at the time of death? The Lord had him live for a purpose. That purpose was fighting against Kali. And in one fight, he was dramatically successful. But then was it that in the next fight, he was disastrously defeated? No. The same Lord who came here personally to protect him at birth, that Lord comes at the time of death as the Bhagavatam. So, the Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation, the Bhagavatam is the avatar of the Lord. It is not different from the Lord. So, it was not that Kali defeated Parikshit Maharaj. That Parikshit Maharaj, he fought against Kali and defeated Kali at that time. But through the way he faced death, he gave both an example and an exposition, a book for all time, for all of Kali Yuga, for everyone how to face Kali. So he was not defeated. So the way the Bhagavatam is, I said, one is the Parikshit Maharaj's story is being told, but which incidents from Parikshit Maharaj's story are being highlighted? That's it. The Pandavas retire, that's when Krishna has departed. Now Krishna has departed, that means that after that the king has to fight against Kali. King, the Lord is not there, but then the king is fighting, the Lord comes as the Bhagavatam. And the Lord provides himself. So, it's the Bhagavatam is illustrating the theme. It is how Parikshit fight, but through Parikshit's story, it is not just a story of how he took shelter of the Bhagavatam, but it's also a story that is an example for all of Kali Yuga. Now, the Bhagavatam is spoken in a very pious culture. And it's significant when Shringi is about to curse Parikshit Maharaj. What is his thought process? See, it's very similarly tragic that just as Ashwathama, he is convinced that what he is doing is right. And the Pandavas are such cruel people that their whole dynasty has to be removed. Now this is not even the desire of Duryodhan. You know, when Duryodhan comes to know that the Pandavas' children have been killed, and he sees takes those skulls and he crushes them. Now he's shocked. What did you do? He dies. Now, although he has his enmity with the Pandavas, but still that consciousness that they are our dynasty. None of my children are surviving, so at least our dynasty has to survive. What did you do? So now Ashwathama is completely convinced that this whole dynasty itself is a terrible dynasty. It has to be destroyed. Similarly, Shringi is also convinced. If you see what Shringi says when he's cursing, he says that because Krishna has departed from the world, therefore this audacious king thinks that the Brahmanas have no protectors. That's why there is no curb on his power. That's why he can do whatever he wants. But he doesn't know that even if Krishna is not there to protect Dharma, I am there. And I will protect dharma. So see, good people will do good things, bad people will do bad things. But the most dangerous people in the world are when people are doing bad things and they think they are doing good things. Then their very conviction that what I am doing is a good thing, that blinds them to whatever bad they are doing. So that kind of rationalization, that is extremely dangerous. So both Ashwatthama and Shringi, they both do something terrible. You have heard this word rationalize? Rationalize. See, when we rationalize, what do? We tell rational lies. So, when we rationalize means we use our intelligence to come up with a more acceptable reason for a less acceptable action. Like if a husband has promised his wife, I'll stop smoking. And the wife comes into the husband's room and there's a smoke all around. So why are you smoking? Actually, I was not smoking. This room was very cold. I just wanted to make it warm for you. So the idea is that the most dangerous people are those who are doing bad while thinking they are doing good. So Shringi is like that and Ashwatthama is also like that. And it is in this context that something bad has happened, something terrible has happened to Parikshit Maharaj for a minor fault. Parikshit Maharaj himself is a king. And as a king, he knows the principle of justice. The principle of justice is that whatever wrong has been done, proportionate punishment should be given. Now, yes, he disrespected a Brahmana, and that was a bad thing to do. But for a disrespect to a Brahmana to be given death punishment. See, he had put a dead snake around the body of Shringi. Now, he had made sure that the snake was dead. It was just his frustration. He was so hungry and thirsty that he was frustrated by that. And he did not get any water from the king, the sage. And he thought that the sage was actually not meditating, but the sage was acting as if he is meditating. The sage was just neglecting him. And that's why he got further annoyed. And he did that. Now, he had no intention of harming the sage. But the idea was that you put a snake on my father's body, I will put a snake on your body. And that snake will kill you. So it was a very disproportionately wrong action. Now Parikshit Maharaj could have said that, why did this happen to me? I am a good person, not just a good person, I am a godly person. I was living a life of dharma, I was living a life of bhakti, and something so terrible happened to me. So when such a thing happens at that time, to remember the Lord is extremely difficult. Or rather, to remember the Lord positively is extremely difficult at that time. Because, as I said, when we try to do something good and something bad happens to us, then it's very difficult to deal with it. So that doing good and bad happening, that is what has happened to the Pandavas. The Pandavas forgave Ashwatthama, and Ashwatthama ended up doing something very bad to them. So this story, why does it start from 1.7, the Bhagavatam? Why does it start from this particular point? So that's the last point I'm going to make over here. It will take about 2 hours. No, this last point is that the first canto, in many ways, is like the trailer for the Bhagavatam. Now, it's a trailer in 2 ways. One is, the first canto gives briefly the Krishna Lila that is going to come in the 10th canto, which is the core of the Bhagavatam, the heart of the Bhagavatam. Not just in terms of the theme, but in terms of size also. Out of the 335 chapters in the Bhagavatam, 90 chapters in 10th canto. And it is almost 1/3 in length of the entire Bhagavatam. So, that glimpse of Krishna Leela that is going to come in the 10th canto, that is given in the first canto. So first canto in that sense is like a trailer. But secondly, the theme of bad things happening to good people. And still the good people staying devoted, staying virtuous, staying firm and focused on the Lord. That is a theme that the Bhagavatam will keep telling one after another, after another, after another. So, this theme, now in one sense we could say for Parikshit Maharaj, it is not that he did a good thing and a bad thing happened. Rather, what he did was a small negative and what he got back was a huge negative. This was the case for Parikshit Maharaj. So, in response to this, there are various stories told in the Bhagavatam. And each story, the key stories in the Bhagavatam, are all about when Parikshit Maharaj is being helped to remember the Lord. So the Parikshit explicitly doesn't ask the question, why did this happen to me? Why was I cursed like this to die in 7 days? But that is an unspoken yet prominent concern. And Shukdev Goswami consistently tells stories of characters who faced similar situations. So what does it mean? If you look at some stories in the Bhagavatam, I won't go into all the stories here, we'll see that if you look at the 4th canto, the story of Dhruva. Now Dhruva, did he do anything wrong when he wanted to sit on his father's lap? There's nothing wrong over there. But for such a small child, he was grievously insulted by his stepmother. So Dhruva, what happens? He's done a small good, but for him, that insult feels like death. Bhagavad Gita says, Sambhavita chakirtir maranaditirichite. Now, if you consider, after that, we have the story of Chitraketu. Chitraketu, what happens? Now, he laughs on seeing Lord Shiva speaking on the renunciation with Parvati sitting on his lap. And now his laugh is not a laugh of mockery. It's a laugh of amazement. So he is completely misunderstood. And he's misunderstood. And here the Bhagavatam depicts something really scary. See, normally we understand that by past bad karma, which we may have done, bad things can happen in our life. Isn't it? That we might meet with an accident, we might meet with some sudden disease or whatever. But the question that comes up is, can past bad karma make us do present bad karma? That means, by past bad karma, can somebody be in present a bad person? That would say we are helpless, we are trapped, because of my past bad karma, I'm going to do present bad karma. Because of my present bad karma, I'll get further bad situation. And it seems to be like an endless loop. So generally, it doesn't happen like that. But in rare cases, it is possible. So what happens to Chitraketu? He is not just cursed to die. He is cursed to become a demon. And a demon who is attacking the Devatas, who is killing the Devatas. So now this is very, very difficult. That's why sometimes we may know some senior devotees or some leaders who are very exemplary, who are very moral, who are very spiritual, and suddenly they do something just so shocking. So now we can try to find out from the circumstances what happened, what triggered it. But sometimes it is that past bad karma can also lead to present bad karma. Now that doesn't mean that person is completely blameless. Now, we are always held accountable for our actions, but the point is that doesn't mean that all the good that they had done in the past, it's all false. They're just hypocrites all that time. No, sometimes it's just these phases of insanity come. And when the phases of insanity come, that person just goes crazy. So one has to be. So sometimes. So in this case, what happens? Chitraketu, he is cursed not only to become a bad person basically. It's a very dark situation. But in spite of that, what happens? He is delivered. That when his final battle is there, death is there, suddenly Jataswara, his remembrance comes back. And at one moment he is saying to Indra, I am going to kill you now. And you are the killer of you're a Brahma Hata, Guru Hata, Bratra Hata. You're the killer of a Brahmana, you're a killer of your own Guru. Because that Vishnu was performing yajna for him. In that sense, he was a Guru. In the Bhagavatam, the word Guru is used differently from the way we use it currently. Bhagavatam often uses the word Guru for anyone, if somebody is doing a yajna. And somebody does, and the priest who is doing the yajna for the person, that person, so when you are initiated to perform a yajna, then the person who is doing the yajna becomes your Guru. The Bhagavatam uses the word in that sense also. The Guru has many different meanings. But the point is, he says, he's your Guru and you killed him, and he was my brother and you killed him. So I will kill you. And from that, suddenly at one moment, if however you kill me, then I long to go back to the Lord. Ajata pakshayamataram khaga. Just as a bird whose wings have not come out is longing for a mother to come. Just as a lover wants the beloved to come. Like that, just as a cow, as a baby cow wants a mother to come. Like that, I long, when will the Lord come in my life? When will I be close to my Lord? So that spiritual awakening happens. So bad things can happen. So through this story, Parikshit Maharaj is also being assured or reassured that phase of how I could say, how could I have done that to Shamik Rishi? What was the thinking? So sometimes these spades of insanity may come upon us. Now we try to avoid them as much as we can. We try to protect ourselves from them. But if they happen, don't beat yourself up for it. We try to make amends for it. We may do atonement for it. We try to not put ourselves in situations where we will again be tempted like that. But the point is, this story illustrates that the world can actually be a very cruel place. The good people can, because of one, even non-mistake you could say, they're told not just bad things happen to them, but bad things happen through them. Now if you move further, then we have, I'm not going over all the stories, I'm just focusing on a few stories over here. Then we have the story of Prahlad. Now, it's one thing to be a good person and to still have bad things happen to us. That I didn't, why is God, that is the law of karma, that I should be protected. But it is another thing that we do good things and because of that very good thing, bad things happen to us. Isn't it? That Parikshit, Prahlad, he is persecuted just because of his devotion. Isn't it? Normally we think that if I am a devotee, God will protect me. But if somebody is persecuted because of their very devotion, then it's not just that there's it's like almost a causal correlation. He is doing something good and that very thing is coming to bite him. Now at that time, it is much more difficult to bear it. Like in some parts of the world, we have in Soviet Russia, for example, we had devotees were persecuted. And they're persecuted just for being devotees. Some of you have seen that, read that book Salted Bread or seen that drama Salted Bread, how devotees were, it is horrible what happened to them. So now, at that time to stay on and persevere as a devotee, it is far, far more difficult. Now at least we can say there, actually that is not being done, that is being done by demons, and there are demons in the world. They are against us, they are against those who are devotees and they will trouble. So we can say, where is the Lord, why is the Lord not protecting? And the Lord came and protected him eventually. For some time, there's a dark phase. But at least demons do such things. But the next is, so if we move forward to the, if we move onwards, so the 6th canto, 7th canto, if we move forward to the 8th canto, we have the story of Bali Maharaj. And here, Bali Maharaj does a good thing, and not only a bad thing happens to him, it is the Lord himself who does the bad thing. So, it's like we do something for a person, and then that person only, we do a lot for that person. We go out of our way to do some good for that person, and that very person turns and hurts us. That very person hurts us in a way that is actually deceitful. Now this, for most people, would be like a deal breaker. Forget it, that I don't want anything to do with such a Lord. But that is the glory. So what Parikshit Maharaj is told through various stories is that Bahavo Gyan Tapasa Puta Mad Bhavamagata. There are many in the past who have suffered not just like you, but worse than you. So there is a saying in English, misery loves company. Now that in a negative sense, it means that miserable people make others miserable. But the other point is that misery loves company. In a positive sense, it means that when I am in misery, if I see I alone am not in misery, then my misery decreases. Isn't it? You say, I get a flu. And then I feel terrible. But then I say, there's COVID, everybody has got flu. Okay. It's not that I am happy that everybody has got flu, but it's that just my misery decreases. So like that, Shukadeva Goswami could have told any stories. But he's selecting stories that emphasize what is Parikshit Maharaj's situation. Not just his situation, but worse than his situation. And in that way, it is reinforcing his conviction that, just as in the past, all these souls have stayed in the shelter of the Lord, you also stay in the shelter of the Lord. And then, among all these, the most dramatic story is the story of the gopis. Now, what is the gopi and Krishna Lila? Often it's misunderstood because of the Madhurya Ras, because of the male-female interaction. But the point over there is that the gopis, they give up everything for Krishna. When Krishna plays the flute, what happens? Pati sutanvaya bratra bandhavan ati bilangyate antyachyutagataha. They fight against all their family members and they come to Krishna. They give up everything for Krishna because Krishna has called them. That Udgita Mohita, their flute song has called us. And then Krishna gives them up. Now it is, one thing is to be punished by God. That is, now there is no fault and still you are punished. It's very difficult to bear that. But because Bali Maharaj also said that the shloka Shlagya Tamam, that that no one has ever been punished the way I have been punished. But because the punishment is coming from you, O Lord, that I accept it. Now to be punished or hurt by the person whom we love, that is bad. But what is worse is to be rejected by the person. Now punishment also can be seen as a sign of love. You care for me, that's why. Now how you are caring for me and what you are doing, I don't know. But still, you care for me. But the Lord just leaves and goes away. And the Lord does it once in the Ras Leela. And the second, he actually leaves and goes when he goes to Mathura. So to be rejected by the Lord. And when they are rejected by the Lord, so here we can say that they give up everything for the Lord. The gopis embody Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. So the idea is, many times people ask that, why couldn't Krishna have just married the gopis? Why have this whole thing of the Parakya Bhav? See, the point is, the Parakya Rasa is to demonstrate the degree of the sacrifice of the gopis. That, see, normally, for the sake of bhakti, for the sake of Bhagavan, we give up good things. We give up bad things. So we give up sinful activities, we give up all the wrong things that we do. Now that is some level of sacrifice. Now to give up good things is even a greater level of sacrifice. For example, if we have wealth and we give the wealth to Krishna, we give good things. But even when we give up good things, we may give up gross good things and we expect subtle good things. What is subtle good thing? I gave so much donation. So, oh, you are such a charitable person. People expect that, respect that reputation. Now imagine that somebody gives a huge donation and they give the donation anonymously. They give the donation to the point where they practically have very little to survive by. But they give it anonymously, and then what happens? Everybody else in the community says, you have given nothing, and they criticize them for that person. And actually I have given more than all of you combined together. But so that person has given such a great donation, but that person is being criticized for being miserly. Now that would be unbearable, isn't it? So the gopis, when they in the Parakiya Bhav they surrender to Krishna, the gopis are actually giving up their reputation for Krishna's sake. And in a conservative society, even in modern society also, but at least in a more conservative society, for a woman, her reputation is the most important thing. And when the gopis leave Krishna, leave their homes to go to Krishna, they are, in one sense, accepting social death. They don't even know whether they will be accepted. It's very unlikely they will be accepted back by their family again. But the gopis do this for Krishna's sake. And so those who are in the Swakiya Bhav, they at least get the honor of being Krishna's wives. They have the honor of having the name of Krishna. But here the gopis get nothing. And the gopis are ready to risk everything for Krishna's sake, and Krishna gives them up. So when they are rejected like that, at that time, it is natural that the gopis will give up Krishna. It's almost natural. Suppose the romance movie plot is there, a boy and a girl are in love, and the boy says, no, come over here, we'll run away from our home. And the girl with great difficulty comes over there, the boy doesn't turn up on you over there. I'll never trust you again. That's completely understandable reaction. But what happens? In spite of that, the gopis don't give up Krishna. And that's why when Krishna reappears after disappearing the Rasleela, he says, Naparayeham. The devotion you have shown, the service you have done, the faith that you have maintained, it is such that it is beyond my power to reward. And I have nothing to offer to you in return. And that is how the Lord shows how much He appreciates. So for a devotee, what the Bhagavatam is showing is, yes, there is the law of karma in the world and all that is true. And we consider that. And we try to do good things and we try to avoid bad things. But for a devotee, ultimately, every adversity is a test of Krishna. And it's a test of our faith. So Parikshit Maharaj, he has not done anything wrong, still he is cursed. Or he has done something very wrong, small wrong, and he is cursed in a huge way. But how does he go beyond that? He's told the stories. So now the last part of the last point. The Bhagavatam doesn't just talk about passing the test of Krishna. Or rather it says, we pass the test of Krishna by getting taste for Krishna. Yad rasamrit truptasya nanyatra syadrati kvachit. That if we get taste for remembering Krishna, then no other taste will attract us, no other taste will agitate us, no other taste will distract us. So the point is, at a material level, there may be different tests that may come, and some may be far more severe than others. But if we have taste for Krishna, if we have absorption in remembering Krishna, then that is the safest and the strongest and even the sweetest way to pass even the toughest of tests that come in life. So Parikshit Maharaj, what happens to him by the end? Shringi's curse does come true. So his body gets burnt. And this time Krishna does not miraculously revive his body. But even before that curse comes, the Takshaka comes, even before that, Parikshit Maharaj's heart and soul are completely absorbed in Krishna. And he is already departed to be with Krishna. So he is protected at the spiritual level. And through that protection at the spiritual level, a similar legacy of protection at the spiritual level is created for every single character, for every single one of us in the Bhagavatam, in Kali Yuga. So in that way, the Bhagavatam's theme is not just to remember Krishna and to have many stories by which to remember Krishna, but to remember through the stories that even in the face of unfairness in the world, that Krishna is still the supreme reality. The world can hurt us in many ways, and sometimes it may appear that even Krishna is hurting us through the world. But the point is, always the world's capacity to hurt may be huge, but greater always than the world's capacity to hurt is Krishna's capacity to heal. Krishna's capacity, bhavaushadat shrotra manobhiramat. So rather than worrying about how life may wound us, or how in the future, or how life has wounded us in the past, or how life is wounding us right now, we focus on how Krishna can heal us and how we can stay immersed in the remembrance of Krishna. And that is what Parikshit Maharaj demonstrates through his own life. And that Parikshit Maharaj who had found thirst and hunger unbearable, because of which he offended a Brahmana, that Parikshit Maharaj, when he gets taste for Krishna by hearing from Shukadeva Goswami, he is no longer even slightly disturbed, let alone agitated. And for the 7 days when the Bhagavatam is spoken, he transcends hunger and thirst, being completely immersed in Krishna. So, I'll summarize what we discussed today. We try to discuss today about Bhagavatam's thematic focus, thematic overview or focus we discussed. So I talked about it from 3 different perspectives. We started by talking about how the Bhagavatam's theme is to remember Krishna. And the purpose of the Bhagavatam is that it is for Parikshit Maharaj to help him to remember Krishna in the face of when death is coming. So the idea is that remembrance of Krishna can counter in the Kali Yuga Pavan, Kali Bhayanashana, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like that. It can counter the influence of Kali Yuga. And the first canto of the Bhagavatam is like a trailer where how the 2 characters, Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, they become ready to hear, or ready for the conversation, ready for samvad that is described, within which the focus is much more on Parikshit Maharaj, because king's stories are much more interesting, much more dramatic. So that's the first canto basically. So it's a trailer as well as it is a scene setter or a stage setter, setting the scene or setting the stage. So it is a stage setter for the rest of the Bhagavatam. Then we discussed about specifically the theme of the first canto, the Parikshit's backstory. I said that every story, every narration, every history is actually a selection. So in Parikshit Maharaj's story, which incidents are selected? So the idea is that if we look at his birth and then the death curse. So there are 3 key incidents that are described. In his birth, there is a Brahmana who attacks him. Brahmana's missile comes. And then the Lord appears and protects. So the Lord comes over here. Then after that, he defeats Kali. That's the key incident. We discussed how he is such a competent and diligent king that he is like a personally the king going on patrol to protect the citizens. Then at the end what happens? Another Brahmana, there's a verbal missile that comes. That is Shringi who attacks him. Now this time he dies. So what is the protection? That is the Lord coming as the Bhagavatam. So it demonstrates how to transcend. So now it is not only that he is protected, but through the Bhagavatam there is Kali Yuga protection is demonstrated. How to how to protect ourselves from Kali Yuga, that is demonstrated. And then within the first canto, so I'm just elaborating first canto, that how one of the key themes of the Bhagavatam is that bad things happen to good people. So we discussed how the Pandavas actually they forgive Ashwathama. And what does Ashwathama do? He tries to destroy their dynasty, destroy the heir of their dynasty. So, sole surviving heir of the dynasty. So now we discuss the whole backstory of why Ashwathama thought like that and what is happening. But the point is that there's a limit. Something terrible happens to the Pandavas, although they try to do good. So in the first canto itself, the theme of what happens to Parikshit Maharaj is depicted as this has happened to your ancestors also. And then the stories in the Bhagavatam, we discussed how each of these stories illustrate the same thing to greater and greater degrees. So we discussed 6 stories. Fourth canto, that was the Dhruva story. That it is a normal desire and he gets humiliated for a normal desire. Now, then after that, you have the story in the 6th canto of Chitraketu. The Chitraketu also actually, what he is doing is appreciating, but in that case, it's scary that he gets such a severe punishment that not only bad things happen to him, but bad things happen through him. He is made into a demon, which is terrible. And the 7th canto, we discussed how it is Prahlad is doing great thing for the Lord. His bhakti is doing, it's Prahlad's story. And it is because of his bhakti itself that rebounds on him and he suffers a lot because of that. Then in the 8th canto, we discuss the story of Bali Maharaj, where it is, at least here it is demons doing something terrible, but here Bali Maharaj goes out of his way to serve the Lord, and that very Lord, what does he do? The Lord cheats, the Lord punishes. So this is even more difficult to bear. But then the highest degree is depicted in the 10th canto, where the gopis, they give up everything for the Lord. And when they give up everything for the Lord, what happens? The Lord, it is one thing is cheating, but the worst thing is the Lord seems to reject them. So if we are rejected by the Lord, why would we want to stay with the Lord? But the idea is that through all these characters, they pass the test by gaining taste. That even if Krishna is not there, even if Krishna is punishing us, the remembrance of Krishna is so joyful that no matter how much difficulty is there in my life, Krishna, you are my Lord always. Ashnishava padaratam pinashtuma adarshana marmahatam karotu va yatha tatha va vidhatu lampato mat prananathas tusayevana paraha. Mat prananathas, you are my prananath, you are my Lord. So that is the example that the Bhagavatam gives to Parikshit Maharaj, and through Parikshit Maharaj for all of us. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Premanand. Any questions or comments? Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Again, very interesting way to look at this as well. Looking at all the examples of the stories, sometimes it can feel like no matter then how far you progress, there's always going to be bad things that happen to you. You know, how do we understand and at our level look at those things? Because all of these devotees are great devotees who have been able to pass the taste test. Right? How, at our level, do we continue on when we have these things going on in our lives?
Okay. So, when we see bad things happening to great devotees also, then and they have the taste, but we may not have that taste. And how do we look at our life and our future?
And understand that, not get too down in the fact
Yeah.
that things are always negative is happening.
Negative things are always happening. See, there are two different ways of looking at this. It's a very practical and important question. See, often we say that we are pleasure seeking, and that is true at one level. But if we consider the Bhakti Samra Sindhu, we are rasa seeking, not pleasure seeking. And pleasure is in any relationship, there has to be pleasure. But pleasure is only one part of a relationship. That, say, if a husband and a wife take care of a child. Now, in taking care of the child, let's see the child growing up, child learning to walk to talk, there's a great joy. But in taking care of the child, there's a sense of responsibility, the sense of bonding over the responsibility. There are so many other emotions that come in. So if we consider the rasa, among the 12 rasas, there are 5 primary and there are 7 secondary rasas. So the point is, even fear, bhayanaka, bhaya, asya, all these are rasas. So the idea is that a real relationship, if we consider, a real relationship is rich with emotions. And the goal of pleasure actually makes life very pale. If you see in the spiritual world, there is joy in meeting Krishna. But when the gopis are going out to meet Krishna, there's anxiety, there's anticipation. There is a whole range of emotions that are there. So the point is that we seek a real relationship with Krishna. And in that relationship, there is a range of emotions. And all the emotions contribute to the depth of the relationship. So, therefore, the bad things happen to devotees. And bad things happen even to great devotees. But the point is, they have a relationship with Krishna. And they see those things as a part of their relationship with Krishna. As a part of the challenges through which they can serve Krishna. Prabhupada could have lived very peacefully in Vrindavan, but he went to America, and that actually made things more complicated, much more difficult for him. So at one time Prabhupada it seemed that he would not get his American visa renewed. So he almost decided that he was going to relocate to Montreal, Canada, and that would be the base and the headquarters. So there are logistical challenges that Prabhupada also faced. When Prabhupada met Indira Gandhi, the main thing he wanted to talk was that he wanted to do big projects in India, but his Western disciples were not getting visas in India. So the routine challenge that we face, the great devotees also face those. But for them, see, the point is that problems, if we consider, problems are always going to be there in the world. Now what Krishna consciousness does is that it gives us a purpose that is bigger than the problems. That Krishna is great, Krishna is glorious, serving Krishna is glorious, and for the glorious cause of serving Krishna, even difficult problems become bearable. And for Prabhupada, when he went to the West, it was for the purpose of serving Krishna, for the purpose of fulfilling his Guru Maharaj's instruction, for the purpose of fulfilling Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prophecy. So now, for each one of us, that sense that serving Krishna, glorifying Krishna, sharing Krishna is glorious, that sense will gradually come inside us. And the more it comes within us, the more the problems we face will start becoming bearable. So that's why, rather than worrying about what problems are going to come, that sense of the purpose of serving Krishna, the purpose of connecting with Krishna, the purpose of loving Krishna, if we keep that purpose in mind, then that will enable us to face challenges. So should we live in fear? Oh, great devotees are tested, I'll also be tested. Yes, see, the world is a place of distress. Whether we have a purpose or we don't have a purpose, trouble is going to come. Now sometimes the form of the trouble might be different. We may say, because I'm practicing Bhakti, I'm trying to build this temple, I'm getting so many complications. That is true. But then, if we were not doing this service, we would be doing something else. Maybe, we would be trying to maybe build a big business empire, or we would be some people going to Tamoguna and they start taking alcohol and they start struggling with alcohol. And that creates problems. So in one sense, in the world, problems are always going to be there. One of the ways I put this is, in the world is Dukkhalaya. If you tell people the world is Dukkhalaya, the place of distress, it seems very negative. So especially to Western people, the way I put it, the world is a university of adversity. So it is adversity is there, but the point is not the adversity. The point is it's a university. That through the adversity, slowly we start learning what really matters. And we start holding on to that more and more tightly. And that's how we move forward. And so, when I was coming here to Australia, Australia, New Zealand, so I started on 25th, I started from India, and I had a flight via Singapore to Perth. And when I was in Singapore, I had my next flight, and they told me your visa is not valid. Australian visa is not valid. I said, I have a visa. The date expiry is next year. The date expires July of this year. That 408 visa category has a peculiar provision that it is multiple entry for 1 year, but all the subsequent entries after the first entry have to be within the 3 months. And that is not written on the visa statement. It is, you have to go to the website, only there you find it. Now, I just thought that I had the visa. And then, normally, so I was in Singapore, I didn't know what to do. Now, ideally speaking, what should have happened is that when I was in India, at that time only they should have verified my visa. And they checked my visa, but what happened? I had an Indigo flight from Mumbai to Singapore, and from Singapore I had a flight from, I think, Spirit Airlines. So in India they checked and they said it's fine. I don't know why they said it is fine. I feel they should get a fine for that. But anyway, I was trapped in Singapore, and then it was a continuous flight, so my luggage was checked in for Perth. So I didn't know what to do at that particular point. And then I said that okay. So I called the devotees. We tried to check. We called some agents, and we concluded this visa is not valid. So, and then I said, okay, I was at the counter, because the first wheelchair assistant brought me and kept me at the Spirit Airlines counter. And then when they said that, no, your visa is not valid. And now, they said you have to go to some other place to apply for a visa, because I didn't have Singapore visa also. So I had to get something. And they told me that you're not connected with any airline now, so we cannot give you a wheelchair also. And what I had done was, I had got some sleep apnea, so my bag was almost 11-12 kgs. It was a huge bag. So, and what happened, inside you cannot even have a trolley bag. So it was very frustrating. It was very frustrating at that time. I thought that, I'll just go back to India and we'll figure it out and I'll come. But then, I thought that I already started off, Krishna must have some plan. So then at the airport only I found a place, and then I called a devotee was in Singapore. He said that, okay, we may have to stay in Singapore. I'll apply for a Singapore visa, but it may take 2-3 days. So then we started thinking whether we'll get a lounge in the airport where I can stay on the lounge for 2-3 days. And then I called another devotee, and then we started at the airport only sitting, and I applied for my Australian visa again. And then while I was waiting over there, within about 30 minutes, I got my Singapore visa. Now he told me that till now nobody has got in 30 minutes. So I was thinking that, one thing went wrong, but one thing went right also. So, sometimes we have to take the small wins, count the small blessings also. So then I decided so the point was that particular phase, when they said your visa is cancelled, wheelchair assistant is not available, and you have to stay multiple days in Singapore. I think I might just as well go back to India only. But then somehow I stayed on. Then I was thinking at that time in Singapore, it was Ramnami was the next day. So I was thinking that they already had us visiting guests in Singapore. So I decided what to do. I could not come to Australia. I was thinking I'll come to New Zealand. But then the flight to New Zealand would take much more time, and booking it at that immediately short notice was quite expensive. Then one devotee had long ago called me to Taiwan. So I called that devotee, and he said, yes, you can come, we don't have anyone for Ramnami. So the whole thing worked out that the previous day my visa was cancelled, and then I got a Singapore visa. I filled the Australian visa, and after I filled the Australian visa, they said that you have to do because I'm applying for Indian passport holder, applying for Australian visa outside India. They say you have to do biometrics. And now we looked online, there are no biometrics. Biometrics date was only not available for 1 month in Singapore. So then they had a walk-in facility. We walked in, and within half an hour, I got to walking through that. I got the biometrics. And the devotees were waiting. I just completed the biometrics, and then when I completed the biometrics, this was all on Ramnami morning. And we had not yet decided whether I will go to Taiwan or not, because how long the biometrics will take. So from the Singapore airport itself, Singapore biometrics point only, I took my luggage and went to the airport. Another devotee brought my luggage from where I was staying. Notice where I was staying. I caught the flight and I got for Ramnami to Taiwan. So the point was, we had the devotees in Taiwan were very, very nice devotees, mostly Chinese devotees. So eager to hear about Ramlila. So when I saw their enthusiasm in eager to hear about Lord Ram, hear about the Lord, at that time I felt all that trouble is worth it. So sometimes, somewhere, to answer the question, somewhere we all have taste. We may not have taste in everything in bhakti, but we have taste somewhere. It may be taste in speaking about Krishna, it may be cooking for Krishna, it may be singing about Krishna. So wherever we have taste, that is our source of strength. And that source of strength is what will make everything else worth it. So for us, I would like to, I was going to talk about this some other place. See, in our life there is emotional strength and there is spiritual strength. So now, when we say taste, is taste emotional strength or is it spiritual strength?
Emotion.
Yes. See, now at present, if there are many activities in bhakti, say if there are maybe a dozen activities in bhakti, then now Vidha Bhakti, or let's put that, say there are 12 activities in bhakti. Now all of them will give us spiritual strength, but not all of them will give us emotional strength. Like if chanting, for many people it is not a source of emotional strength. Chanting requires effort. Now Kirtan might be a source of emotional strength. For some people, classes might be a source of strength. For some people, classes may require strength to go and attend the class. So for each one of us, we need to know, among these spiritual strengths, there are some things which are emotional strength for us. So this is what gives us taste. Now as we move forward, as we grow in bhakti, what will happen is, all the things that give spiritual taste spiritual strength, we'll also develop taste for them. But right now, we have to know what I have taste for. And what I have taste for, that makes all the tests worth passing, worth enduring. So that's why when we are practicing bhakti, within our bhakti activities, let me put it another way, that the activities that we do in our life as devotees, there are some that give strength to us, and there are some that require strength from us. So some that give strength and some that require strength. So now for us, we may have, it can apply to people also. Now some people we look forward to meeting them, and some people we look backward to avoid them. Isn't it? How can I get away from here? Now the people whom we want to avoid, they may not be bad people. They may be good people, and they may also be necessary for our purification and growth. But if we are constantly meeting people who are demanding and draining, who require strength, then we will collapse. So, there's one Prabhupada disciple, I won't mention his name. So, whenever I call him, he's a sannyasi guru, whenever I call him, he picks up his call and we have long discussions. So, now his personal servant is a close friend of mine. So he said, 2-3 times I have observed that when somebody wants to meet, Maharaj says, I have no time. But whenever you call, he has time. He always picks up your call. So he must be very special for Maharaj. So then he said, so then he asked Maharaj, every time you answer Chaitanya Charitamrita's calls, why is that? He says, because he never comes to me with personal problems. So he says that with him I always have philosophical discussions. And he says, of all the people who come to me, nobody comes with philosophical discussions. They come only for personal problems. So now as a spiritual master, he will address the problems. But dealing with personal problems is exhausting. But philosophical issues, discussing this shloka and this point and that person, he says, I get stimulated in that. So the idea is that for all of us, when we interact with people, we need to arrange our schedule in such a way that we have adequate time for the things that give us strength. So if we consider the things that give me strength, we put in green and we put this in red. Not that they're bad, but they just require strength from us. So if we make our day's schedule in such a way that all the activities are red, then by the end of the day, we will have red eyes, or we will explode at someone and that other person will have red eyes. Isn't it? We will be crying or we'll make somebody else cry. Isn't it? Now, we may say, I want to have a day where all activities are in this category. Now, this is utopia. It is not going to happen. But at the very least, what we can do is make sure that we space them out. So that even if there are some negative activities, then we make sure that they are interspersed with, not negative, strength requiring activities, they are interspersed with strength giving activities. So, especially when we are going through tests in our life, then we need to know what are the sources of taste for me, and we need to make time for those things. Okay? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any last question or comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. It was very broad overview, like from 1st to 10 cantos. I have never heard like that before. Very amazing. My question is, you said that our past karmas, because of our past bad karmas, do we do present bad karmas? And the answer was not generally but rarely. But I was thinking, when we do bad activities, we get the modes, and that's how we are conditioned, and that's why we do present bad karmas. So is it answer should be like yes always? And my question is confusing.
Yeah, let me try to rephrase the question. Say,
Okay.
so what you are saying is that when we do bad activities, sometimes by that we come to know that I have these conditionings.
No, when we do bad activities, because of that only we acquire the modes, and those impressions are there in our mind, and that's why we do present bad activities.
Okay.
So our present bad karmas are because of our past.
Okay. So there are two different things over here. See, there is, are our present bad karmas because of past bad karma? Well, yes, in the sense that because of our past bad karma, those impressions are there. But are those impressions inevitable? Are they inescapable? Like, if you have a range, I remember in an earlier class I mentioned this, that like if a slope is like this, water will go gently on the slope. But if the slope is like this, then water will go rapidly. So for us, our mental floor, it could be conditioned the gentle floor, or it could be a very steep floor. So accordingly, say if somebody's conditioning of lust or anger or greed is very high, then their floor is like that. As soon as they get a temptation, then sarva dharman parityajya mayam ekam sharanam vraja. They just succumb completely. And so now, if we consider somebody's mental floor is quite steady, then they are less likely to do it. So the inclination of the mental floor is determined by our past karma. But the actual flow of the water is our consciousness going right now. So can that be stopped? Generally, it can be stopped. So our inclination towards bad karma in the present comes from our past. But does the bad karma itself come from the past? So can we say that, or can somebody say that, somebody becomes angry and violent? Say, why did you hit me? No, that's my conditioning. Then we should put you in the condition of a jail. So the idea is that either you have to control your conditioning, or society will control it for you. And then so when the idea of putting in like earlier I said, the wicked people, they don't fight against their lust, anger and greed, they fight for their lust, anger and greed. So if somebody is not, everybody has inner demons, as they in today's world they use the word inner demons. Everybody has anarthas. But if you are not, and those anarthas will create trouble. But if the individual is not ready to fight against the inner demons, then society has to fight and keep those inner demons under control. That means by keeping that person under control. So the question I was asking is, the question we were discussing is, that can the inner demons be so strong that a person is helpless in this life and the person has to do something? So if somebody becomes alcoholic, or if say somebody has illicit affair or something like that, can we say that that was because of past karma? Well, there is some level of present karma involved. See, let's consider this, because you raised a good question. Let's consider the story of Ajamil. Now, Ajamil was going through a normal course of life. Now, it was not that when that morning he went out, he was not going out to some place where immoral activities were happening. It was not that he was going out with an evil desire, with a sinful desire. He was going out by normal activities. And at that time, when he was going to collect firewood, he saw this very agitating sight of a Shudra and a Shudrani, that they doing all kinds of lusty activities basically. So now his seeing that was destiny. That was past karma. There was no intention for him in doing that. So if we consider the sight that agitated him, the sight was, if we consider present karma and past karma. So we could say the sight was almost 100% past karma. There is 0% present karma. He didn't go out of his way at all. Like sometimes what happens in some people's lives, they don't go seeking temptation. Temptation comes seeking them. Like somebody is in the workplace, and in the workplace somebody proposes to them. Somebody, they show no interest, but that person keeps tempting them, keeps alluring them, keeps pressuring them. So there's like the temptation is coming to them. Now this can be said to be due to destiny. Now after that, now it was to his credit that he pulled himself back and he went away from there. But the memory remained, the agitation remained. Now if we consider the first indulgence. The first indulgence was the memory state was, the memory created such a craving that he went and he was there with that particular woman. Now when he went there, was that because of past karma or present karma? Now we could say at least there is his going there. Even if we say it's 1%, there is some present karma involved over there. You know, he could have, there is no description in the Bhagavatam that he went and maybe talked with his father or talked with his guru. He surely had some guru. He talked with someone and what do I do about this? He tried to battle it alone. He couldn't. So could he have done something to stop it? Now maybe that craving is so strong that it's almost impossible. So we could say even this is 99%. Or we could mostly it is sometimes some by the past karma some temptation comes and the force of the temptation is so strong that you just can't do anything about it. But after that, see, he was not just satisfied by going and by being once with her. He went and he didn't just want to be with her repeatedly. He wanted her to be with him regularly. Now from there, when he wanted not just repeated indulgence, but regular indulgence. Now this, you could say this almost becomes 100% present karma. Why? Because if we consider what is happening over here, at that time, surely when he's a Brahmana. So now, if a Brahmana, he rejected his wife. And his parents opposed him. What are you doing? He rejected his parents also. Now, if we consider that way, if some Brahmana is supposed to do some name-giving ceremony or even the wedding ceremony, if a Brahmana has rejected his own wife and is living with some other woman, who would want such a Brahmana to come and do their wedding ceremony? Isn't it? So basically because of that he lost his job also. Now, each of these are not temptations coming to him. These are all actually obstacles or boundaries to fulfilling the temptation, and he is breaking all of them. Like going against, rejecting his wife, rejecting his parents, giving up his job. So all that is clearly present karma. So that means what happens is that sometimes our past karma may put us on the path to negative karma in the present. And to some degree, we may go in that direction also. But if our present life is structured responsibly, morally, spiritually, then the structure of our life will ensure that we don't go too far down that track. We won't go too far down that track. So that way, we will be protected. Say, if somebody is just on, somebody surfing their phone and suddenly some obscene picture comes up. And they look at it and spend some time on it. That pop-up coming on its own, something, that is, we could say, past karma. Now it is a product of technology. The past karma can come through anywhere. So, but we can say it's a danger that we are all subject to. But if somebody is in a workplace where there is a firewall, where you are supposed not to surf any sites, and that person finds a way to break the firewall, and then that person is going and surfing certain things, and then in the office it's found, or in the family there is parental control, and somebody actually breaks that control and goes, then what is happening is, then that cannot be blamed on past karma. So past karma create a tendency, but our present karma should be creating protection for ourselves, should be creating boundaries so that we don't act on that tendency, and even if we act, we don't go too far. So that's why the past karma doesn't normally make us do past bad karma doesn't lead us to doing present bad karma. It may lead us to some degree, but if somebody is completely doing something terrible, that cannot be blamed on past bad karma. Okay? Okay.
So just an extension to that question.
Yes, bro.
So we can see, once we are in a mode, say for example tamasic mode, so isn't our like thought process, the thoughts that we get are also driving us even in the present situation? Like even though, okay, there is an impetus that has because of the past karma. But now, once we are in that situation, because we are already in tamasic mode.
No, so that's agreed. See, if we have past conditioning and presently also in tamoguna, then we will be driven by that. That is true. But if you see somebody who's in tamoguna, their tamasic mode will also stay for some time. Isn't it? If our life is structured in a particular way, then a person cannot stay in tamoguna for also a very long time. Like if somebody has 2-3 hours free and he just spend random surfing on the net. Now okay, that might be tamasic, just click on this and click on that, click on that. But after that, there is some rajoguna, some satvaguna. You have some responsibility. You have to go and do your job, or you have to take care of your family. We have to do some seva. So there are some structure that pulls us out of tamoguna. So that's why I said that phase might be there for some time. But if somebody is not only in tamoguna, but they are also putting themselves in a tamasic environment, then basically they are removing the protections. Like if somebody is a normal person and somehow they get drunk. Maybe they go to a party and somebody pressures them to drink. But if they drink and come back, they come back to their colleagues, the other colleagues who are more responsible, they come back to their family. What did you do? Why did you do that? So at that time they are pulled out of that tamoguna. Isn't it? So sometimes either because of the external circumstances or because of the internal conditionings, we may go down a negative track to a particular degree. So that's why the boundaries that we have in our life are very important. What bond? Even when we do wrong, how far will we go? So like all of us may get angry. And when we are angry, we may raise our voice. We may speak harshly to someone. But most people who are from a reasonably cultured society, they will not use swear words when they get angry. So anger is there and that anger is being expressed. So like yesterday I was talking about boundaries. So even with respect to our anarthas. So if we have anarthas, so what happens is that there is we could say an aspirational boundary. The aspirational boundary is that, say if I have anartha of anger, my aspirational boundary is that I will never raise my voice against anyone. I will never speak in a cold or a harsh tone also to anyone. That might be my aspirational boundary. But I also have to have a non-negotiable boundary. I cannot stay within the aspirational boundary. The non-negotiable boundary would be that, say, by anger, I'll never raise my hand against anyone. I'll never use swear words against anyone. So for us, the boundaries can also be over a range. And now what is non-negotiable? That may vary from person to person also. And that is one of the main reasons what happens is when devotees come from very different cultural backgrounds, then their past culture is very different and their non-negotiable boundaries may be very different. So I was in an American temple and there was an Indian devotee. I was staying at their home, and they are from UP, from a Chaturvedi kind of very traditional Brahminical family. And they came to America and they went to a temple in America. And then the temple president is a very dynamic devotee, very scholarly, very dedicated, but is also a very aggressive person. And what Sannyasi was telling me, he's like a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra combined in one. He was joking. Very scholarly, very managerially aggressive, very good at fundraising, very good at menial work also. Everything he does. But the point was that so this devotee, the Mataji, went to the temple to do some deity service, and he saw that the temple president, somebody had come for some construction and they were not ready, and he was yelling at them. And while yelling, he used some obscene words. He used some terrible words. And she was aghast. He says, how can somebody in the temple speak like that? The temple president can speak like that. Yes. So then this had happened just a few days before, and then I was visiting. I was staying at their home. So he told me. So the husband said that I'm thinking that I don't want my wife to go to such a place only. How can we see that person sitting on Vyasasana and hear a class from him after we have heard him use such obscene words? So then now that temple president, I also know him very well. So then I told him, can I talk with him about this? He said, okay, but he should not get angry with us now. So I said, no. So then I told him about this. He said, Prabhu, I grew up in America, they use the word tough neighborhood or a rough neighborhood. So I said, I grew up in a neighborhood where nobody spoke one sentence without using an obscene word. So from there, I have come a long way. So I'm aware of this, and it was wrong of me. I realized this. I was also myself planning to talk with them and apologize for that and explain it. But I was thinking I'll talk with them face to face. But after that incident happened, because he was yelling at, basically what he is doing is that he is getting, in America there's a lot of people problem homelessness. So he's trying to work with the government and get these homeless people to start doing some voluntary activities in the temple, and that way they may also in a spiritual ambience become devotees. But sometimes these people, they just don't understand, or they don't do things when you speak politely to them. So he said, I was speaking to that person like that, and that Mataji just came over there. As soon as I saw her, I realized that that she should not have. I should not have spoken like that. But I said I would never speak to her like that. But the thing is, I'll explain to them. But it is that this is from both sides it comes up. The conditioning was there because of which some traces are remaining, and the other is the circumstances of that person was not just listening, and this is the way you need to talk with them. That's what he felt. He said, I realized that as a temple leader, I cannot talk like this with anyone, but you have to get things done. So then he said, I explained it to them. So the thing is that sometimes what are the acceptable boundaries? What are the negotiable, non-negotiable boundaries? That may vary from person to person, isn't it? So we have to deal with that accordingly, appropriately. So if we are in a community, what are the non-negotiable boundaries for everyone? There's almost like an unspoken understanding that certain things are not to be done in certain places. But then when some new people come into the community, then those boundaries, they have to be navigated. How do you deal with that? So I was in America once, and I gave a college program, and mostly American students were there. So one American girl, she asked a question that why do religions fight among each other so much? So I was talking about inner peace and I was talking about spirituality. So she said, why do religions? So I answered the question, elaborated, talked about 3 modes and everything. And I could see she was very satisfied with the answer. And after the class, I was talking with people, and that girl came and she said, this question had burdened me a lot for many years. I asked many people this question, but your answer was the most satisfactory for me. It's a big burden off my heart. Thank you very much. Can I give you a hug? So the devotee, the Grasta devotee was organizing the program. He was standing next to me, so I just looked at him and save me. So he saved me, but in an entirely unexpected way. He said, he is a monk, on his behalf you can hug me. His wife was next to him. And his wife said, I am his wife, on his behalf you can hug me. So then this protection through parampara. So then I talked with my spiritual master about his Radhanath Maharaj. So he said that, as a brahmachari, you cannot accept that embrace. But as a preacher in the West, you cannot reject that expression of appreciation. Because in their culture, But that hug, there are different kinds of hugs apparently, and how long you hug someone, that makes a difference. But whatever it is that, but hug is just a normal expression of affection and appreciation. So if you reject that, then that person is coming closer to Krishna and expressing that appreciation. You are saying no to that. Now in India, normally the unspoken cultural understanding is people won't do something like that. But when we are in a different culture, so what are the non-negotiable boundaries? That varies. So sometimes that's why things become difficult when, now I'm talking about Indian and Western culture, but even in Indian culture also you can have North Indian culture and South Indian culture. There can be differences. But in general, within a community, if we are working together, everybody needs to have an understanding of what are the boundaries. And there may be aspirational boundaries and everybody cannot stick to the aspirational boundaries. But there are also non-negotiable boundaries and a person should not go beyond those non-negotiable boundaries. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Gaur Premanande.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhuji ki.